first, I can't quite believe this. This is actually the first time that we've actually spoken face to face sort of thing, even though we've been messaging each other for, well, nearly 18 months now, and you've written 6 pieces for the website. For some reason, we've just never actually, sort of met face to face, even though we've heard our voices a lot, each other's voices on podcasts and things. So it's nice to actually be able to have a conversation. We were just talking kind of off the air just before we started about how you sort of found License to Queer. So which I didn't know, actually. I didn't know this story. So do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, no, it is really funny. And I think I've said it before on Really 007 as well on their podcast, but how I kind of found License to Queer and then basically the fandom is just a bit not unusual. I just think it's just very, there's just certain pieces that lead you to a place, and really have to thank Calvin Dyson, because I've followed him for probably over 10 years since his original My Weekly Bond reviews. Pretty much the only link to any form of Bond fandom because of that. And I think in large part that was because of age. A lot of it, there was no real area for, teenagers, it felt at the time. And so really that was my only link to that community. And then about 2 years ago, I went, Calvin was the one who told me about the Bond event at the BFI, which I eventually went to, and so I met him properly there, and also just saw lots of fans together in one place. Realized that a lot of the people there were gay, and that kind of like led to me thinking about things myself, in terms of gay fans of Bond, and then as lockdown started, me and Calvin messaged, and I talked about that, about how I was surprised about there being so many gay fans, and just starting to kind of like dive into that sort of stuff. And then he messaged me saying, "Oh, you should follow this account on Twitter that has a website and that does a lot of analysis and stuff, and it's quite new, but that I may find it interesting." So then I went and gave a look. I think the actual words I said was, "Just checked it out. I appreciate the guy's commitment to the white dinner jacket," which I know is still strong, which is good. And then from there, I followed David at License to Queer, and then I started following other accounts on Twitter and stuff, and then that's how I really was like, oh, okay, there's a lot here, because all I'd known was Calvin, and from the offset of that, the James Bond and Friend podcast, and people tweeting along during the ITV marathon that went on last summer of Bond films. So that those things, and then alongside following License to Queer, just has now snowballed into a place where I've now written those 6 articles for the website, where I've been on the Really 007 podcast, when I've just done a video for Cinema Savvy about something non-Bond related, alongside my own video stuff. So it's interesting to see how the course has changed in these last 18 months because of something like that happening.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful. Calvin has signposted a number of people to License to Queer, and it's great in a way, because what I wanted to do was kind of make it easier for gay fans to, and obviously lesbian, bisexual, trans, and any other queer Bond fans to sort of find each other, really, because as you've just said, there are a lot of us out there. It's just we're not terribly visible, and I still find people following the social media accounts for License to Queer saying, "I had no idea we existed," or "I thought I was the only one," and that sort of thing, which is completely bizarre, really. But no, and I'm sorry I'm not wearing the white dinner jacket today. I've actually got more than one white dinner jacket now. So I've been kind of, how many white dinner jackets do you need? Turns out several. So no, if those people who are watching the video version of this podcast will note that I'm wearing a jumper, which means I think I'm going to blend into the rainbow background today. So I apologize if it's hurting anybody's eyes. Your t-shirt is amazing.
I had to wear it today. I did. I bought it, what was it, last month? Because I put a picture on. I think I bought it just before Halloween. It wasn't intended to be a Halloween thing. It was just like, oh, this t-shirt is around. I had to buy it. And if for the people who aren't watching, it's nanobots aren't just for Christmas, which is the line that Hugh says in No Time to Die. And I just thought it was so cool. And I was like, I have to have it. And also because it's in this font, which everyone said about No Time to Die font, which is essentially the Love Boat font as well. And like, how can you not wear it? I was just going to say about when you say about having to find people, like, you know, like find like basically the people for the website and everything like that. All I can think of is Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. Whereas like angels are like diamonds, they can't be made. You have to find them. And
does that make me Charlie? I'd rather be one of the angels if possible.
What about Bosley?
Oh yeah, I'll be Bosley then. Yeah, because wasn't Charlie? Sorry, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who's not seen the most recent film, but Charlie wasn't a very nice person, was he? If I remember correctly.
Oh, I don't know about the new one. I've not seen.
Oh, you haven't seen? Okay, well, sorry, that should have come with a spoiler warning.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Well, I mean, if it's not John Forsyth, then I'm not really interested in Charlie. Okay. So Charlie can be an absolute insert swear word.
Yeah. I'm at risk of deviating already because we did actually, rather than just have a chat, we did sort of come up with a kind of structure for today. Although I'd really want to get into your love of retro TV, like Charlie's Angels and Love Boat and that sort of thing. But we'll get to that, because what I thought what would be nice to do now that No Time to Die has been released, and we've both talked about it in some detail. But I think it'd be really cool to go back to the pieces that you've written on License to Queer and almost do like footnotes or end notes to those pieces in light of No Time to Die, because a lot of the ideas, and you've been exploring some really interesting ideas in your pieces, a lot of those ideas might be usefully applied to No Time to Die, and we can kind of say how No Time to Die sort of dealt with those issues as well. So I'm sure we're going to jump around like crazy. And you know, both of us on podcast, when we've been on podcasts, like to tangent into different things, and that's going to be brill. But I thought I'm going to kind of go with them in a sort of random order, not the order that you've written them in. And I'll make sure there are links to all of these articles when this goes out as well, so people can find them more easily. But one of the most recent pieces that you've written, in fact, the most recent piece you've written to date, is the one about No Time to Die, and you called it Salud, the end of an era. And that was your, about 4,000 words of thoughts about No Time to Die, which is really interesting. But it was bookended by how your own life has sort of changed in the period where, Spectre was released 2015. I almost got Bond wrong then. Spectre was released then, and then No Time to Die was released. In between that time, quite a lot's changed in your life, hasn't it?
Yeah, a lot actually. It is weird to imagine how much. And I originally wasn't going down that route when I started writing that article, but then you kind of take stock and go, whoa, you just say, oh yeah, it was 6 years ago, and then you really truly think, okay, what has happened during that time? And if we talk about my own coming out and that, which I do hate anyway, I hate the idea of it, but we all have to go through that. I just come out to my closest friends over that summer before, had still not told my parents, I think was about to drunkenly tell my sister maybe like 2 weeks after Spectre came out or something. so like ridiculous like that. Like it was a real time. I was heading to my final year of university. It was a real shift, more so than I think even just going to university. I think that whole, summer of 2015, winter of 2015 was like the biggest moment of my life that, thus far. I think I'd also at that time was just started volunteering for the Gadio as well. So I was really kind of, being a bit more confident in, all right, well, okay, well, I need to do this for university anyway, but I'm going to, do something that, signposts me a little bit as, oh, could he be gay or whatever? So, I mean, there's all that element anyway, plus there's, everything to do with work. I had a part-time job at that time. I've now been in my full-time job for 4.5 years. I've moved maybe like 3 times during then, to the point where now I'm living on my own, in my own place, which is great. So yeah, there's a lot, like, and you can look at any one of those things and go, oh, that's a big adjustment. But everything together in 6 years, it is a lot. And it does make you kind of feel proud of that. But it also, on the other hand, makes you go, wow, I've done all of that, and Bond has only had 1 film since. So, I mean, you can look at things, glass half full, half empty, whatever. But, I mean, in any case, we should be thankful that it's there at all. And that's what I would like to do anyway.
Absolutely. So who knows how much will have changed by the time they eventually get round to doing another Bond film?
I might be in my 30s, and I just don't think...
shock horror,
I don't think I'm prepared for that.
Well, as someone who's not that far off leaving their 30s, you've got quite a bit to look forward to. Don't see it as a negative.
Oh no, there's always room for improvement. I always say that anyway. And also, some people get better with age, and so
I won't ask you to comment. I've got massive bags under my eyes today. I was up until 1 a.m. doing a massive James Bond quiz, and then woke up as usual at 6 a.m. So I'm on 5 hours sleep right now. So I mean, the whole thing about, oh God, this could be one of these massive tangents, but the whole thing about gays and aging, there's kind of 2 schools of thought on this one.
Mm.
It's sort of like, gay life begins at 30, because for a lot of us, I know you came out when you were younger than me, but it's almost like life is on pause in a way. But then there are other people who kind of, I actually read a article the other day, which still is saying things like, someone writing from their 20s can't imagine, even what gay life looks like after 30, because you're over the hill and all that sort of thing. So any thoughts on that? I suppose you don't know from your perspective. How old are you now?
26. So 27 in May. But I think since I've moved back here, and obviously, so I live in Salford. I used to live here during university because I went to the University of Salford. So what's interesting is that when you go on like certain apps around here, it's just really funny how a lot of the people stay the same. Yet maybe when I was 19, I got maybe 50% more messages off non-blank profiles. And maybe it could also be something to do with the hair as well, because now I have a lot longer hair than I did back then. I think some people just maybe don't. I don't know. But it's just interesting to kind of be in. I lived in a building 4 buildings away from here when I was 20, 21, and it's just really weird to just notice how less engagement I get. Not that I don't really mind, because I've said this part, I just don't really care. But it's just interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what these apps are you're referring to, because no, in all seriousness, I probably just sort of, I don't know, missed that sort of kind of thing, to be perfectly honest, because obviously I met my husband about oh God, how long? I think we worked out the other day. We've been together for 14 years, which I think is pre-app. I'm not sure. So that's how old I am. I have no idea what apps you're referring to, but yeah, no, that's really interesting. So do you think it is still that sort of I don't know, twink sort of culture? Do people, is that what people are, is that what we're saying?
I do think so. I do think so. You know, it's not sad, but you just kind of think a lot of people will understand, especially if you live in a city like Manchester. Like, there's just always new people who are moving to the city, and you know, whether they are 18 and starting university, or you know, they're 25 and they're starting a new job. There's so many, you know, people who are coming in that I think people get very, you know, lackadaisical about things and just go, oh, well, you know, it's fine, whatever. I'll just wait for a new person. You know, I think a lot of people nowadays, especially like I'm kind of like that a little bit, where I'm like, I don't really care. I can't be asked going out of my own way to message someone. I'm like, oh, I'll just go on there. If anyone messages me, then great. If not, then fine. I'll go back on it in a few hours and just see. You know what I mean? It's just very much like that. And maybe that's just me. You know, that could just be me being so done with that side of things. You just want more physical interaction and meeting people out. But especially over this past year and a half, it's not really been an option. But yeah, I do think, especially I do feel bad for, you know, gentlemen who are over a certain age, because I do think for them, you know, I can imagine that for some, they may think that is not an option for them anymore, and that they would either have to think about going about things either a different way, or having to lower their standards or expectations or anything like that, because the people that they want are just not interested. And I find that, you know, difficult to comprehend, because I'm maybe a bit scared that I will eventually be that, which I'd hope not. But I just think it's sad that that's kind of like a general thing that goes on. You know.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we bring this back to Bond, I mean, this is endlessly fascinating outside of Bond anyway. But if we bring that back to Bond, there has always been that sort of age gap, shall we say, between Bond and the women in the films. And a lot of people have commented online about how Vesper was only 23. Is that right, according to her?
Yes. Which I was shocked about. But at the same
time, does it?
It doesn't. I mean, I've definitely met very mature, you know, 23-year-olds before, and they are out there. But she just seems so, you know, wise beyond her years. I would at least put her more closer to my age.
Yeah, definitely.
If she was going to be in her 20s, I'd be like, okay, 26, 27, maybe. I feel there's enough experience there, and if you're saying that Bond's maybe in his early 30s at that point, I think that's fine. At the same time, when it comes to age gaps, I mean, I'm definitely someone who, you know, prefers someone who's older anyway, and you know, I have, you know, dated someone who was in their early 40s when I was in my early 20s, and I understand the stigma, but at the same time, it wasn't, you know, it's never, oh, like you're doing it for like shock value or anything. Sometimes you just meet a person, you get on, and you just decide, oh, right, okay, we'll just see how this goes. Clearly, it didn't go that well, but I mean, it's an experience. You learn things from it, and it did to me in the actual being actually in it. It was never seedy or anything like that, and it was never just about one thing or anything. And I think that's why I've become a lot more understanding of, you know, some couples, you know, sometimes they do have a 20-year age gap, and sometimes that's fine. You know, I'm a lot more comfortable to say that now and to be more understanding of it. And I think that's why when people do have the conversations about Bond and his age with, you know, certain female characters, why I'm not as opposed to it, because sometimes there is, some people in their early 20s do look at someone who's in maybe their early to mid 40s, or in Roger's case, early 50s or whatever, and might go, oh, you know what, you just did this, you saved the day, you're a good-looking guy, I now want to sleep with you. I can put myself in Stacey's head, like, oh, right, okay, even though I don't really agree with that particular relationship going like that, I can still at least understand it and go, oh, right, okay, fair enough. You've gone through a traumatic experience with this guy. Yeah, so I can understand that, and I can, and it makes me understand, Melina as well a bit more. Holly, like all of that stuff. I mean, I kind of go more towards Roger when I think about that, because I do think his is the more glaringly obvious age gaps. But nowadays I don't really have a problem, as long as it doesn't feel like you're forcing, or that the woman, the female character, is being forced to do that.
And I wonder if that's because I completely agree with you. And it was nice to sort of have it reversed, where I think Monica Bellucci was slightly older than Daniel Craig in Spectre, and that was a big thing in the press. And I don't know if as gay people we're kind of more open to that idea, because there is a stigma against gender age gap. Age gaps in gay relationships as well, but I don't think it's quite as stigmatized. I might have that wrong. That might be really naive. What do you think?
I definitely think it's there. Like most things, there is a stigma. However, I don't think it's as prominent as other things. Anyway, I know some couples who are like that. I know that I have a friend who is in his early 40s, and he's going out with someone who is younger than me. But they've been together for all year, and they're very happy with each other, and it's nice to see. So I think it's fine myself. However, I do think in just sort of, I feel like it's one of those things that would end up being a soap storyline. It would be okay, this character's going out with this character. Oh my god, like, can you imagine the scandal of that? Usually it'd be like, oh, you're going out with your friend's dad or something, something like that. I do think when it comes to the actual gender, it's more stigmatized that way. I think when, it's a younger female going out with an older male, there's definitely, people look at that in a certain way compared to a younger male and older female. Usually the female in that situation is called out, which I don't agree with, whether it's like an older woman is being a cougar or whatever, and it's kind of drilled into people that that's not the usual thing to do. And then when if it's a younger female, then she's made out usually to be something of a gold digger. There's obviously cases where you can look at the male in that, you could say something about them being predatory or something. That's going to like an extreme, side of things. And I think in most cases that's not it at all. Again, I think it boils down to two people who obviously like the look of each other, and who enjoy each other's company. And that is what it is. As long as it's all legal and above board, then fine. It's not any of our lives they're not affecting our lives. So why do you need to spend so much time, really hammering home that it's not correct when you're not in it?
And am I right in saying, I'm just thinking, you've written quite a lot about Tracy in Bond. So for obvious reasons, because she is amazing. But am I right in saying, was Diana Rigg slightly older than George Lazenby, or was she slightly younger? I can't remember.
I think she was slightly older, not by much. I think because it was Because was Honor Blackman older than Sean Connery at the time?
You're gonna have to Google it, otherwise it's going to really annoy me, and people will be listening to this, screaming, going, "Oh, she was this age." So just to verify,
but it's very rare. It is rare.
Dinah Rigg, 1938. We share a birthday. She was born on the same day I was, and George Lazenby was, born the year afterwards, so a year and a couple of months afterwards. So so the archetypal Bond girl, if you will, or at least the Bond girl who Bond actually has something of a committed relationship. I was going to say long-term relationship, but maybe not in the case of Tracy, considering how things turn out. So actually, that was slightly reversed, which I know is sort of against cinematic tropes and norms and that sort of thing. Why do you love Tracy so much? And it has No Time to Die sort of. Yeah, how has No Time to Die affected that? Because some people have said that Madeline is like a Tracy surrogate or replacement or something like that. I don't feel comfortable with that sort of comparison, but how do you fare?
Well, it's an interesting one for sure. Madeline, I would probably agree with the statement. I think Madeline is essentially, Tracy, I can't call her 2.0. I can call her Tracy 1.5 or something. She's a version of Tracy in that specific continuity of films. Had it gone a different way, it would be Tracy in that. Clearly, they realized that by using that character in that continuity could really rock the boat, really upset things, and I think it would have made No Time to Die a bit off-putting, because I think you'd expect her to die even more than people may have thought prior to going into it. In terms of what I believe, it's done for Tracy's character, I think it makes her stand out even more, actually, No Time to Die, because, you now have a film that has Bond dying at the end, and obviously it's very rare for a main character to die in these films, like such a prominent character anyway. There's very few that have done so in such a dramatic way. Obviously, we've got, Judi Dench's M, now we've got Daniel Craig's Bond, Felix just has in this film as well. And obviously a lot of female characters have died in the films, and a lot of allies, a lot of the people have gone. However, Tracy was such a powerful character and such an important one that has stuck with people for over 50 years. So I think she was always in a lot of people's minds, actually, when going into No Time to Die. And I think you can easily put a lot of her characteristics onto Madeline. However, Madeline also has a lot of her own unique attributes, which thankfully works in her favor, because one, she definitely needed them after Spectre, and two, it just makes her stand out on her own, and it doesn't mean that she gets eclipsed, because she very easily could have been eclipsed in this film, and I'm glad that she didn't. I'm glad that the character has kind of has been redeemed, or has at least been given enough.
She's actually a character. She's not just a plot device or a, when I did my own piece about No Time to Die recently, I went back to how she was treated in Spectre, and in fact Léa Seydoux herself said that she was a catalyst for Bond to change, which turns her into just a plot device, not a character at all. And that's my big problem with her in Spectre, especially when she just sort of decides almost on a whim prior to the finale that she can't do this anymore, and then walks away. I'm just like, you've just come all the way over to London, and then you just walk away. It's just like that you need that just because Bond needs that in the climax of the film. It's like, that's not how this character would behave. It's just irritating.
Yeah. And what I will say as well alongside that is that, you know, a lot of people, you know, describe, you know, On Her Majesty's Secret Service as a Tracy film starring James Bond, you know, with his like little His Gloria interlude in the middle. You know, a lot of people have said that, and that is, you know, I would say definitely partially true. But what you see in No Time to Die is that it's not necessarily a Madeleine Swan film featuring James Bond, but it definitely feels like more of a level pegging there, even though she's not, you know, she's not in the entire thing. There's a large chunk where she's not in it, just much like Tracy as well. Well, a lot of the story does revolve around her and her decisions, which is similar to Tracy. And I think even though the character of Bond is, you know, so I can't say powerful, but he's so prominent in No Time to Die as being the driving force. It doesn't mean that it means that it still feels like his film. Whereas I can understand people saying in On Her Majesty's, yeah, Bond's doing his thing, but Tracy's influence, you know, actively changes things, and what does matters. So it's interesting to think about it that way, and it's not something that I really thought about, how those two characters influence their films and influence their Bonds. But in both cases, it's a large influence. One for Tracy because it's the love story, and then it's getting married and the ending, and then with Madeleine, they have their own love story, but then it's betrayal, there's a child involved, there's Blofeld elements, and the ending, you know, that she gets captured as well, like, you know, Tracy did. There are parallels there. I think anyone who thinks that that they are two completely separate, I would question, just because they do have some parallel things going on. But I just knew the producers would never do that same thing. They would never have killed Madeleine. And I was pretty confident with that going into the film anyway, even though it was at the back of your mind, of course. But I don't think, as much as people have a go at the producers and in general the Bond filmmaking at the moment, which I can definitely understand, and I don't think they're lazy in terms of what they want, how they want their characters to end up. Maybe a little bit lazy in Spectre, but I think the whole aim of that was that it wouldn't be the final end. I don't think they were thinking, oh yeah, that's the end of Daniel Craig's Bond. No. But I think Barbara intensely wanted, you know, him back, you know. So yeah, I do think it's interesting to put those characters next to each other and just, you know, take a look at them side by side. But what's also important is to separate them too and think, what do they have going on within the context of their film, with the context of that time? Because again, it's 50 years as well, and a lot has changed, and a lot has changed just within the franchise anyway. But it's interesting that they both still do the same things, that there's a lot of strong attributes there, including, you know, Tracy fighting Gunther, for example, and then Madeleine, you know, fighting through. Yeah. So it's nice to see that too, that there are things that it's like a passing of the torch in a way.
It is. And I know I use this analogy a lot on podcasts and on the website, but it is like a Venn diagram, really. You've got like Tracy and Madeleine, and there is some overlap there. And I know that we have all the time in the world muddies those waters. But just to pick up on what you said, I think it would have been absolutely awful if they had killed Madeleine, because it would have basically just been history repeating itself, and I think that would have been incredibly lazy. But one of the first things that you wrote for License to Queer was all about killing Bond girls, and you drew some really interesting comparisons with the way that historically gay characters have been treated. And it started off, I never thought I'd find an excuse on the website to use photos of that plot from Hollyoaks. So for any American listeners, British soap opera, In fact, one of the current writers of Hollyoaks, Johnny Larkin, is a big supporter of Licensed to Queer. So shout out to Johnny if he's happens to be listening to this
avid one. Madonna fan as well.
And an avid Madonna fan.
Madonna's biggest fan as well, which I love.
And his partner does the most amazing gay artwork. It's fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, soap opera has a long gay history anyway. Like Coronation Street was created and you know, by a gay man, and a lot of the writers are gay as well. So I just thought it was brilliant the way that you managed to incorporate a gay storyline from a soap opera that had a massive formative influence on you, and then applied that to Bond girls, but then who often die prematurely in a story. That's a trope in itself, but also there's that trope about gay characters having to die in stories. Have you had any further thoughts about those sort of ideas in relation to No Time to Die? Because I have. So I'd be interested in what you think.
There's a couple actually. One is quite positive in terms of, you know, I think the landscape of, you know, soap and, you know, media in general is shifting in terms of, you know, killing, you know, gay characters. You know, there's a lot of, you know, soaps nowadays. You know, there's you know, many gay characters in all of them. And of course, like most soap characters, I mean, since in a soap like Hollyoaks nowadays, people die left, right, and center all the time, whether they're gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, trans. Like they will just, you know, kill someone off as part of a storyline. And it for me, even though I don't watch it, when I see those bits now, I do think, oh well, I mean, it's part of that story. You know, or the actor wanted to leave. You know, it is what it is. It feels less. It doesn't feel like an attack or anything like that. It doesn't feel like there's any, you know, underlining thing there. So I think that's really positive, and I think they're trying to do something. They're trying to do more with that. I think in EastEnders, I think there's like rumors that the gay couple that who are married are potentially going to open up their relationship and maybe bring in a third person, which I don't know if that's true, but I've just heard rumblings that may happen. So I think that would be interesting because I mean, that sort of relationship has never been really portrayed on.
Not in a soap opera that I'm aware of. No.
So I think, you know, it's interesting that they're leaning into, okay, and I think maybe that's due to having more, you know, behind the scenes people who are, you know, coming up, who are out and who are actively, you know, saying, oh, maybe we should do this, should try that. You know, I think
there are people, you know, that I always think soap operas sort of lagged really, but behind what's actually happening in society and what's acceptable to put on screen. But, you know, there are quite a few people in polyamorous relationships and thruples and that sort of thing who engage with posts on Licensed to Queer. And I know we're both two cisgendered gay men talking here, but I think it's so important for media to represent the full range of queer relationships.
No, it's true, and I'm glad that that at least, you know, from what because I look at Digital Spy a lot because I used to get a lot of like soap information on there when I was younger. So I do that's where I read up on like these things recently. But no, so from that perspective, I look at, you know, that and then No Time to Die and think, okay, well, they didn't, you know, the bury your Bond girls trope wasn't in effect here. Because you don't, they all survive, which makes me happy. I think they very easily could have killed, I think, any one of them, one of the female characters. Paloma is probably the most obvious, because she is such a side character, and she is in it for not a large length of time at all. Nomi could also have been, you know, you have, you know, a 00 agent. Double O agents don't usually last a long time if you aren't Bond. But no, I'm glad that she didn't either. And then obviously we've spoken about Madeline already, and I think it would have left a very sour taste if they'd done that, especially with Matilda involved, having potentially, it could have gone down the avenue of, okay, we'll make Matilda an orphan. It's like the cycle starts again or something.
Yeah.
They could have done something like that. I know, and I just know I'm glad that they didn't. On the flip side, there are people who do die. You have, so you have the villains anyway, and that's fine. But then you have Felix,
Yeah,
and eventually James. If you want to say something about, something looking a bit queer or anything like that, Jesus Christ, there's a lot of emotion in Felix's death, and I'm glad that they managed to portray that, because even though it's a lot of telling, not showing, in terms of we've not seen them around each other a lot, so they're just referencing a past that they're just alluding to, that we're meant to believe happened.
Yeah.
Luckily, Jeffrey Wright and Daniel Craig managed to, make us believe that, or they made me believe that. They made me believe, okay, they've been in on loads of missions. They've done more than just sit at at a poker table and at a bar. They've actually, they've been like a Dalton and Hedison team and stuff like that. They've done that, and so it does make his death, Lighter's death, more emotional. I think because, I think Jeffrey Wright especially plays it with such warmth in this film, that you just kind of go, oh, I really didn't want you to go. And I think it's so reminiscent of Vesper's death as well, in terms of just the last time he sees him alive. It's, in water. It's jarring at the same time because of that. And it's like, you put yourself in Bond's shoes and just go, oh God, not again. Someone he was so close to has now gone out like that. And I feel like in this case, again, not really much he could have done to save him. But it's sweet as well. It is very sweet to watch, despite him dying.
It is sweet, and there are quite a few people who've been in touch with me to say that there's no way they're not saying this wasn't intentional. That as you said, those visual echoes of Vesper, which I thought on my very first viewing, I thought, whoa, okay, he's floating away in exactly the same position. Gilles, who I had a conversation with recently, he has actually frozen the images and has done a comparison. He understands cinematography and all that sort of thing in more detail than I do, and he's adamant that it was completely intentional. And obviously that then opens itself up to queer readings. So there's someone who commented, actually I incorporated the comments directly into the queer review, who says basically this is, the implication is that their relationship has spilled over into something romantic. And just because you're friends with someone, they're in your chosen family, doesn't mean that isn't going to spill over into romantic or sexual feelings. And I think there are so many other people who've written on Licensed Queer as well, like Kathleen Jowett, who totally has always seen Bond and Felix in those terms. So it was really emotional, I think, for Felix to go in that way. It needed to happen as part of the story. But in a way, he does sort of fit the bury the gays trope in that sense. Because as you wrote about in your piece, he's an ally. He's not a girl, but he's sort of in that sort of romantic position sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's the man that's closest to Bond, and who isn't typically M or Q. There's no other real, and Tanner. I mean, there's not really many recurring male characters.
No.
There's barely any recurring characters anyway, apart from the standard MI6 staff. So, Felix is someone who, although he doesn't appear all the time, when he does appear, you kind of get a sense of comfort in the fact that, it's a kind of bonds, they work well together usually. When Felix is played by someone who actually seems like he can do his job. And, at the end usually sees Felix wave Bond and the Bond girl off, and that's just the way it happens.
I suppose my last thought on the bury the gays trope is I'm just glad that Q didn't die because
Utilize that differently.
Yeah, I spent that.
Did I cut out?
Yeah, I spent the whole of the finale just worried that Q was going to get shot down in that plane.
I mean, I kind of thought maybe, and it was only really because you expect big hitters to go. It feels like they're more confident in themselves to go, all right, we'll get rid of this character. But it makes more sense because he was actually in the field. Yeah, he's not on the ground, but I mean, he is within the airspace and all that, and you've got these, jets flying about. You've got, those ships in the ocean firing missiles. Like, he could have been, a casualty of that. He could have just been caught in the crossfire, as it does happen in, certain films. But and luckily he didn't. Even though, if he doesn't come back, if Ben Whishaw doesn't come back, then they could have had any excuse to just do it for a cheap shot. I would have thought it was wrong, but they could have done that. And I think that's the thing. It's when a death doesn't have any meaning, if it doesn't, if it's although I don't love it when someone has to die for it to be a catalyst for someone else's actions. Sometimes you just know that has to happen to move the story along, and that's probably the best way of doing things. Like one of the some of the deaths that I mentioned in the article that I wrote. I mean, Aki, I hate that she dies because it literally just seems let's just get her out of the way.
Yeah.
She's been an important part of that film. She's done what she needs to do, and then she just gets killed off to just be replaced by Kissy literally in 2 scenes afterwards. And she's never mentioned again. No. And it's why I said I loved when Octopussy and Magda work together, because neither dies. They're both given time with Bond. Yet Magda being around doesn't ruin Octopussy's relationship with Bond. What Magda and Bond had was mostly just a sexual thing that was to do with the main plot. It wasn't anything romantic.
No.
So I wish that sort of stuff happened more, where the female characters could interact and actually. I don't mind when they butt heads, but they don't. One doesn't have to die for the other one to be happy. Pam and Lupe in License to Kill. Lupe didn't need to die for Pam to get Bond.
No.
So it's nice. So again, it's nice in No Time to Die that the characters did survive. That Paloma just waved him off, went back to doing her own thing. Naomi, would have just gone back to the service and continued her life, and Madeline would have taken the tills and travelled and done that sort of stuff. And it's nice knowing that.
Which of the Bond girls in No Time to Die then do you identify most with? And I know it's a tough choice. And there was recently someone commented on a discussion that you and I were both in Twitter. You posted something, I think, and then I reposted it, and I remarked about, like, lots of gay men, Sam and I identify with gay characters. And someone came back, who I'm presuming was a straight guy, and said, why do gay men, and I think he genuinely wanted to know, why do gay men identify with female characters? And there's that whole argument, isn't there, that because we don't always identify with the sort of alpha male, very typical masculinities on display in cinema, historically gay men have identified with women in film. This is not a new thing, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. So which of those 3 do you identify most with, do you think, if you had to choose?
Well, whilst I do think, so I'm going to think about it, just to echo that, I mean, prominent gay icons, female gay icons, throughout history, the classic one is Judy Garland, of course. I don't have that myself, but I can understand why people would put her in that category. Liza Minnelli, you've got Madonna, recently Gaga, you could say Ariana Grande is, in film, film and TV, there's, Kimberly, the original Pink Power Ranger, was like one for me. because it's a lot of those women are strong in whatever sense, whether that's leading a film or, being, kicking ass, or generally just, using their words. Joan Collins in Dynasty, absolute top tier, stuff. Stephanie Beecham, the Colbys, it's all there throughout history. And I think when there's no gay character, or the gay characters that are there are not, people that you see yourself in, you latch on to something that is the closest thing. And I think, fortunately, because I have a lot of respect, I feel like it's given me more respect for women.
Yeah.
It's been these strong women, and it's great when you see them. So it's so good in No Time to Die that each of the women, the three main female characters that are there, are all strong in various ways, and they all have completely different, skill sets about them. Even though you would say, Paloma and Nomi are probably the closest in terms of, because they're both agents. In terms of,
you're just trying to. That was a really elegant
I know
explanation there, Sam. But I can't escape the feeling you're just trying to. I mean, I always hate that kind of comparing women with other women, or men with other men, for that matter. But at the same time, I know the immediate reaction that when I went as a family, there were 30 plus of us, I think, in our party, went to see No Time to Die together, and a couple of our gay friends came back to our house to kind of mull the film over, have a few drinks and whatever, and everyone, all four of us, were like, it's Paloma. She is like the gift for gay men.
I will say Paloma's probably my favorite of the three. However, I feel like, and as much as I feel like I would like to say, oh, she's the one who I'm probably most like, I would probably say that I'm probably more like Madeline out of all of them. If I was gonna think realistically, I'd probably lean more towards the type of character that she is, which isn't a bad thing at all. But I think if people were going to look up, they would look up to the agent characters of Paloma and Nomi, and especially Paloma, because she is just so spunky, and she's so happy-go-lucky yet serious when she needs to be. She can switch. And I think that's what people like. She seemed potentially incapable, that she's only had 3 weeks training. She's, downing Gamasi, like, oh, what is this person about? And then as soon as she needs to, then she kicks in, she fights them off, she does what she needs to do, she gets the car, she does what she needs to do on that side mission and says bye, I think that's great. And I would love to be like that.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I totally agree with you. Paloma's the wish fulfillment, the person that we kind of wish we could be that confident and out and going and that sort of thing. But realistically, I identify mostly with Madeline. So why do you think we identify with Madeline?
Well, I definitely think childhood trauma is probably a large part of that. At least for me anyway. I think that's definitely one thing.
Same here.
And I think for a lot of gay people, they most have dealt with trauma. Whether it's just the realizing that you're gay or more things. So I think that's a large part of it. But I think also it's maybe the way she responds to situations and how she handles things. And the fact that she was so willing to kind of put her own feelings about certain things aside and try to focus on the happy things. She avoids telling James about some of the things. She kind of half tells her story in Spectre and doesn't finish it. In No Time to Die, it feels like she's going to, but then events happen really that are out of her control, that she wasn't aware of. And then she's hit to the curb and out of someone's life. And I think, a lot of us can relate to, you hide part of yourself because you feel vulnerable when that's on show. And you don't want to show that side to just anyone. You really want to put your trust. And I think in that pre-title sequence, I think obviously she's spent time with Bond. I think she's just realized that she's pregnant. I think she's finding out. I think she's figuring out, oh, I'm about to tell him. I'm going to share all this stuff. And then suddenly the Spectre attack happens and she's shipped off away from him. And I think that when something like that happens, you not regress, but you shield and you go, right, okay, I'm just going to focus on myself, and I'm not going to, for a while, I'm going to just not let anyone in, and I'm going to focus on me. Also, she had a child during that, and she's got to think of the child's welfare too. And in that I can't relate as much, obviously. But it's something where I think, well, if I was in her position, would I do the same thing? Probably, yeah. Would I say that this child that is clearly yours is not? Yeah, I would say that, because
totally,
you've not been around 5 years. You didn't want us 5 years ago.
No right to, get invested in this family. Absolutely.
Yeah, we may kiss and we may do whatever, but I'm not letting you fully in.
No.
Into this until I know I can trust you again.
Absolutely. That scene on the train station is utterly heartbreaking, especially when you watch it a second time, because you realize, obviously, well, I think I went in there knowing Madeline was innocent. I don't think there was any doubt in my mind. I know the filmmakers tried to play with that. But I kind of felt it. I feel it from both angles, that Bond can't trust, and that she is completely and utterly innocent, and she's at the mercy of somebody who's going to turn their entire life upside down because of that. And it just that's the first time when I watch the film the second time actually that I start crying. So the first time is when he goes to Vesper's grave, and then it's the train station.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, the sooner Vesper's just out of the consciousness, then the better, because I mean, I went into no time, so I was like, oh, if I have to hear that theme or just see her face in the title sequence again, I'm gonna just explode, because I've just had enough. Like, she's gone, we're done. I understand it, and in this universe, I'm fine in this continuity. I'm like, great, it's fine. I'm glad that she is a prominent figure. Had it been Tracy, I'm sure in this universe, if she had died, then I'm sure she would have been a recurring thing throughout, and that would have been fine. But you just kind of, by this point, you're like, it was 15 years ago. I really just want to move on and
see. I am shook, to be perfectly honest here, Sam, because you've just outed yourself as not as big a fan of Vesper as I am. And I'm not sure our relationship is ever going to recover here, to be perfectly frank. Because I went in there going, I don't care whatever else happens in No Time to Die, but I need Vesper's theme on the soundtrack at one point, please, because it wasn't there in Spectre, because I've never seen the ending of Quantum of Solace as conclusive, and that I didn't think that he would, a lot of people see that as his closure, and I'm just like, no, just because you've dropped the necklace in the snow does not mean this is in the past. So no, we're gonna have to agree to differ on that one, I think.
Oh no, and that's fine. And I totally understand.
You're being very diplomatic.
Oh, I'm always very diplomatic, but I mean, I just don't get the same. I didn't connect with Vesper as much anyway initially, because I watched Casino Royale when it came out in cinema, and that was the same year that I first watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So when you watch both those films for the first time, same year. So I think Tracy was very firmly on the brain by that point. And I was like, all right, Vesper's great, and Eva Green's great, and that's what I just need to state, that she is great and she's a great character, and definitely one of the top female characters in Craig's era for sure. I just was ready. I was ready for her to be let go, and I think, whether or not Bond survived this film or not, I think she would have been let go, and that would have been it. Had Daniel Craig decided to continue and whatever, I think this would have been a suitable end.
See, I'm just clearly, I'm a soppy old-fashioned sort of romantic person at heart, I think. And so I'm just like, for me, Vesper, I mean, this was, I think, why No Time to Die is so good, because I think that Bond is, I haven't written about this actually, but I think he still loves Vesper. He still loves Vesper to the end. But just because he loves Madeline doesn't mean that he stops loving Vesper, in the sense. And I think a lot of people see those as incompatible.
And that is true too, just because, you know, if you lose a first love doesn't mean that that love, you know, diminishes or anything. It's arguably always going to be there. And I think you just have to live with the fact that that person isn't there. So I can't, you know, show that love or use that love for that person. However, I can move on in the sense with someone else and continue living. Which I believe Bond would have done. So I think he always would have. He definitely did love Vesper to the end, but I think he was more, you know, he was ready to just put that to bed and just go, right, okay, that has happened. I have like tore myself up about it for, you know, over a decade and a half or however long.
It is quite a long time. You're absolutely. You're right.
But I have but it's like I'm with a great person right now, and I'm ready to live that life, which makes the then sudden, okay, I'm going to put you on a train now, more heartbreaking in a sense, because it's like, okay, he was just about to go, right, let's do it, and then suddenly he's like, no, you can't trust anyone at all. Walls are back up. That's it. What is it that Vesper says? You know, you've got your armor back on. You know, it's very much that. And I think that's the tragic thing about Daniel Craig's Bond. And I think it's the tragic thing about Bond as a character anyway. You know, he's not able to get that life. If it's, you know, if the female doesn't die or doesn't, you know, go for whatever reason, then something has to happen with him. And like we said before, they weren't going to repeat Tracy's death. You know, they weren't going to do that to Madeline. So if she doesn't die, then something has happened to Bond. And because he'd already retired, it did make it seem, okay, there's a good chance that he will die. So it's interesting from that perspective to think about like his love and what Bond being in love does to the story, and how it actually affects the plot.
We're dealing with the really heavy stuff here. Should we? I'm not saying that video games can't be heavy, of course, but I think we've kind of covered at least 4 of your 6 pieces so far. But there are two pieces I do want to talk to you about if you've got any kind of further insights following No Time to Die. So you wrote a really, really great piece about Bond in video games. And although I've played some of those, like GoldenEye 64, you were the next generation who played the next generation of those games. And also you did your piece, obviously, which was the kind of the showcase of your video projects, which is like retro TV. So if we take the video games first, there's No Time to, you know, what might a No Time to Die video game be like? Would it be okay to kill? I know some video games do end with the hero dying at the end. Have you had any thoughts about that?
I've not. I have thought about video games anyway. I think more so that now the film is out of the way. More about, okay, what does it do for the future of the Bond video game? And obviously there's the one that is coming up, which is currently in production. I think it makes it a lot easier now for there to be an original Bond video game character. I think Craig dying opens that up a lot more, and means that we're not attached to a specific actor. So I think that would be really interesting. If there was a No Time to Die video game, I think it could be actually quite good. I mean, if you think about what levels we had, I mean, you could literally play as, you know, young Madeline in the house, and that would be kind of like a mini tutorial in a way, in terms of you're interacting with the mother. I've got to go and do this chore or something, and then so you see the gun, and then you get, where's Safin? Where in the building is he? And then you're the one who's got to aim at specific points of him. You know, I can visualize all of that. Car chase and Matera, you know, that writes itself. Anywhere you're using the Aston Martin, that's a whole thing. Imagine if you get 2-player, you can play as Paloma and Bond in Cuba. Can
Oh
you
my
imagine?
gosh.
If there was a split screen multiplayer, I mean, you could play. I mean, play as a 4-way deathmatch between Paloma, Naomi, Felix, and Logan Ash or Primo or something. I mean, that would be excellent. I mean, I think so many of these characters are actually very. I can't say iconic yet because I still think it's too early to say. Apart from Paloma, I think she's definitely solidified her place. But I think that so many of the characters are more visually striking than any of the others that have appeared in the Craig universe, which is great because I feel like it makes them more marketable and it puts them in a position where they could appear in future installments of things, whether it's a video game or some trading card thing or anything like that, action figures. That's available to them. So I'm hoping that those characters and those missions, this whole thing can be utilized in some shape or form in the future. I would really love that. I don't know what you think about it.
But I want to play that game, Sam. The game you have just described, especially the opening sequence, playing as Mathilde, that would just be absolutely brilliant. Some kind of stealth game, maybe, almost hiding away from Safin. What was that Alien game where the alien sort of is it Alien?
Oh, Alien Isolation.
Isolation, yeah, that sort of thing would be amazing. I did actually, as I can't remember, I don't think it was the first time, but I think the second time I was watching it, I did think there were some sequences that were almost inspired by video games. And I know that kind of like video games have stolen as much from movies or probably even more than the other way around, but particularly the kind of the thing that's made to look like one shot where he goes up the tower to go and open the gates. And I know that's again a reference back to other Bond films where he has to open the doors to let the so the villain's base can be destroyed. But at the same time, that felt very video gamey to me, that you had to especially that sustained combat where you kill a lot of people in a short space of time. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the games pan out. But to go back to your article, you called that piece resetting the game. So I know it was sort of out there that this would be like the end of an era with Daniel Craig, but you definitely called it in terms of this being a complete blank slate, and what happens next is completely open to possibilities. You floated the possibility as well of having more representation in those video games, and that being a path to incorporating more diversity. Any thoughts on that? Anything? I'll be honest, I haven't been playing a lot. My husband plays video games all the time. We've got every games console known to mankind, past and present. But I haven't been playing much recently. Have you seen any kind of grass shoots of improvement in terms of diversity in gaming? Have you been doing much gaming?
Well, I have been doing more gaming. I have to say, a lot of the games I've been playing recently have not been, I would say, things that make you think. A lot of them, as I've been playing recently, Fall Guys, which is it's basically like Squid Game, but as a video game. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, which not much thought into that, and definitely not much variety. And oh my goodness, what was the other game? Can't remember at the moment, but I mean, none of them have been like ultra, modern, diverse video games like some of the ones that I mentioned in the article. And we've not really had much information between me writing the article and now in terms of what the new video game will be like. So things are very much still up in the air with it. However, I still firmly believe that there's great opportunity here, not just within the Bond universe anyway, but in terms of what they can do stylistically, what they can do with the story, with the characters. It's been a long time since the last video game. There was a set standard of how it needed to look, how it needed to feel. And as much as I would love to get, Nightfire 2.0 or Everything or Nothing 2.0, if there's an opportunity to make something that's not only feels modern and fresh, but also switches up how we would, want to play a Bond film, essentially, how would we want to work our way through? Whether it's going through several different, missions, not just in one story, but it's like you could do 5 or 6 missions that relate to one overarching story, and that's done, and you go to another one. Kind of like how they did with 007 Legends, but let a lot less shit, essentially, is what I'll say with that. But it's all there, and I think the gaming industry, can be very toxic, but at the same time, I think it can be very helpful. I noticed some video games in the article. I think Mass Effect is one of them, where you have different characters that can interact with each other, and the way those relationships form depend on how you answer or how regularly you interact with that person. So what we were saying about Felix before, and how some people may interpret it as that is something romantic there, or something could have happened. If you're in a video game and Felix is there as a character, you can either, it'd be great if, okay, you're just here, he's a friend, he's an ally, you work together, great. However, if you say certain things to him, if you choose certain options, that then leads to new answers being given.
Press triangle to romance him.
Yeah, no, you know what I mean? It's like that could happen.
Yeah,
that doesn't have to just be on Felix, that could be on new characters. It could be on characters aside from Bond. You could be playing as someone else, and because my whole thing is that I don't need Bond to be gay,
no,
anything like that. I don't need that, and I don't think it would be right for them to just state that, because that's not his character. No. However, there's an entire world of characters around him who could, you could be playing as Paloma, and you may run into a female, and that I just think there's so many options there. And in video games, you do that yourself, and you're in control of that story. So if the developers give you the option, no one's forcing you. If someone was a bit homophobic and was like, oh, I don't want to see that, then they choose the options that just, what I mean? And I prefer that. I would prefer that in a video game where you do have, it feels like it's your story.
Which I think the Hitman games, I don't know if the studio behind them who are making the Bond game are going to make it similar to that, but I've played the opening couple of levels of Hitman games, and it did allow you some of those options, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I played some of I think Hitman 2 last year, and I think that does have a variety of options. I mean, mostly it's related. It's less related to relationships or anything like that. It's more related to how someone is going to, how you are going to kill this person. How is this story going to go? You're going to interact with this person and steal their identity. You're going to take this outfit so you can, go into. I think one of the levels that I played was kind of like a race track. So it was like, are you going to be part of the in the pits where you mess with a tire, or are you going to go and be one of the cameramen who is filming, and then you're going to push someone off the bridge? So like there's different options there, and I think as a Bond thing, I think that's totally the right angle to do things. You don't want it to be so A to B, B to C. All right, this is just what happens. Or what happens if you do this, and what happens if you diverge. I think a lot of people like an open world game, and an open world Bond game is something that we've never really had. No. Apart from when you go into driving levels, and you can I can just drive around this town, or in Cuba, or whatever it is. So gaming is interesting. I have to say that the best gaming thing I've seen recently, nothing related to new games, but it was Spencer dressed as Dominique from Nightfire, and that made my day. I was like, I am happy with that. That is exactly who I would aspire to be, even though the character, I can't say is the best character in the world, but I really like her. I think I've mentioned her like a few times in different places. So I think that's been the best thing.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Spency loves that game. You got very, very similar taste in video games, actually. You two have. So no, it's always a pleasure to talk with her about video games as well. And we've been meaning to do something else together more substantially for ages now. So we really must get round to doing that. I suppose the last thing to talk about is the video projects. So have you got anything that you can tell us about at the moment that might be kind of on the go?
Well, I had some like video software issues a few months ago. So anything that I was working on essentially got deleted. So which is gutting.
How did it get deleted? Oh, I just lost you there for a second. Sorry, you were saying something. I thought you got deleted then. Sorry. What?
No, my internet cuts out every so often. Unfortunately, it happened now. Anyway, I'll just start from the
right. You weren't frozen in a weird position. It's fine.
All right. Okay, that's the main thing. But
yeah.
No, so yeah, I had some video software issues and things that I was working on all got deleted. Essentially, I was planning on doing a sequel follow-up thing to my 80s TV series and doing a 90s TV series thing with Brosnan films.
Oh.
And so there was going to be a Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman thing. There was a Will and Grace thing.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
There was another idea. I can't remember what it was. I almost had it all there, but and I had two of the things I was quite far along with as well. Those two initial ones anyway. So I was really gutted, but at the same time, I was having some problems with them. So it's annoying. I'm just looking. Oh yeah, I was going to do Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh wow.
That didn't get off the ground at all. And also MI6, aka CSI, was going to be another one as well. So I could still do those in the future. But yeah, for now they're just kind of parked, and I'll just see if I get to them. I may do some more title sequences. I really want to do an alternate On Her Majesty's Secret Service title sequence.
Secret Service. Do you like that film, Sam?
Not at all. It's only my favorite and one of my favorite films ever. But
we should do a version of this where I should announce at the start. You could do this as a drinking game. Every time you bring your On Her Majesty's Secret Service, take a shot. I don't think people would last 20 minutes.
It's great. It's a good job that I don't really speak about it in podcast form a lot, because I think if I was asked to talk about it, it would be firstly very long, and secondly it'd probably get very boring. So it's probably good that I've not, because if I talked about something like Live and Let Die, I'd be like, all right, okay, yeah, it's a different thing, it's not my favorite, but these are the thoughts. If it was on Majesty's, I'd be like, I'm going to talk about Tracy for an hour, I'm going to talk about His Gloria for ages, the music for another hour. I would go on and on.
Well, when really 007 get round to doing On Her Majesty's, I hope you've thrown your hat in the ring.
I mean, I think I'm not actively going to pursue any of that. However, if anyone does ask, then I'll probably say yes.
I'll put in a word. I'll bring it up with them, because I really, I'm not frightened about having my record broken. The 10.5 hour forensic detailed. I
don't think anyone could surpass that.
I think you probably could. Talking about On Her Majesty's, Sam.
Maybe, but I mean, it's not an aim, and an aim is not to force myself onto anywhere to talk about On Her Majesty's, because there's a lot of other people who have different thoughts who need to share those as well. I've probably said enough just in my writing anyway, regardless of that. And secondly, I speak so positively about it. I want to hear people who have problems with it, or who have issues. I mean, I have issues, but they're so minor for me. But I mean, I would like to do an opening, probably one with Connery and Pleasance in there, with maybe that Elvis song that was supposed to be, you know, the title, like that, or that was thought maybe could be the title song. You know, there's that I want to do. I would love the No Time to Die title sequence with no text, because I would love to put some songs in that. I know I've got written down here under that 90s thing that I had an idea of doing the GoldenEye title sequence, but with Confide in Me by Kylie, which I don't know. I mean, may work, may not. You had an idea about having Sign from Above by Gaga and Elton John. And if I got the No Time to Die title sequence with no text, then I would definitely love to try that and see how that would work. So that would be something. Spy Who Loved Me, I would want to do an edit of that one. I was actually in the middle of a Word Is Not Enough edit, because I'd done GoldenEye and It's Whenever Dies with Dalton. I was working on a Word Is Not Enough one again when the video software issue happened. And I was trying to edit Dalton into the oil at the beginning. So rather than Brosnan hanging from the Millennium Dome, I was trying to get Dalton in there.
Wow.
Trying being the word there.
You really shouldn't be whetting our appetites for these, because we're gonna have to hold you to this, Sam.
I know. It's a lot of this is going to be 2022, Sam. So
have you got, like, I've got a list of things you want to do, Bond creative projects?
I have different lists. So I have an opening titles list because there's so many different options, and I have a lot of them bolded out. So I have, you know, Moonraker, Kate Bush Breathing in bold, A View to a Kill, Easy Lover in bold, Octopussy, Who's That Girl in bold. And then I've got like GoldenEye, Play Dead, Timothy Dalton, Liam Neeson as Alec, Felix, not Joe Don Baker. Yeah, I have like that stuff written down there. The only other one that I've not done, which is on this list, is Quantum of Solace, which you can't get the title sequence.
Really?
I don't have that. No, but I have Beware by the Sugababes, which is a very like different thought.
Oh God, my husband will love you if you do that. He loves the Sugababes so much.
Well, I will say, listen to Beware by the Sugababes. It's not the best song in the world, but it's very Bondy. It feels very Bondy. I'm going to
listen to it straight away after.
Yeah, that's the idea that came from, okay, I'll listen to that song. Hey, that could have actually worked. People may prefer Sugababes to Jack White and Alicia Keys. For most things to that anyway, so why not?
No comment. I'm not going to launch into my passionate defense of that song.
No, but yeah, that's also that's coming up. I really want to write. When we said about Hollyoaks before, I started writing something about that whole storyline that made me realize so I've got notes in my phone right now being like Mick Dean 15 years on, because it's 15 years since it really started in February.
Gosh.
In 2022 it'll be 15 years, so I've whether or not I write a whole thing on that and or pull that somewhere, I don't know, but I've got those things, and then hopefully maybe expand. I did the Cinema Savvy thing recently about Spider-Man 2. Really enjoyed that. It was nice to, even though I love Bond, it's nice to talk about with film.
Yeah. Occasionally,
occasionally, just to
other films do exist. Yeah,
I mean, apart from you've got like His Glory is right there. I've got Avengers, TV show Avengers right there, and then Last Crusade up there. There's other media out there that we want to talk about.
Hey, those things have all got Bond connections, so
and they do. So
you've got a one-track mind, Sam.
I know. I do it well. It all leads to Bond. Well, it either leads to Bond or Star Wars. It's always one of the two, always. But no, I'm hoping 2022 will have a lot more. I've loved this year that the creative is kind of, I've managed to do my day job and just work, and then just be able to spend time doing some writing, some editing, being on, being a contributor.
You know what I find? When my work is busy, it's like the day job. That's when I'm actually most creative. And I think it's because I actually just need something to switch my brain. That's so sometimes after work, I'll still be like mentally wired. So I'm just like, I can't sit down and relax. So I'm just like, I have to do something that needs my brain. So that's when I'm actually the most productive. How do you find it?
I'm kind of set. I always work better, I would say, under not high pressure, but I when there's pressure there, I'm more inclined to do something about
Yeah.
it. So I like when, you know, there's a lot of work on, and I can go, right, okay, well, that's done for the day. I'm gonna have some food, chill, and then I'm a lot more productive at night rather than, I'd say, you know, it's like an offset of work. I'm more like how I feel in the evening will, you know, affect whether I do something or not. Because
Yeah.
most of the editing and the writing that I've done, I've always taken place after 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Because I used to be like a real night owl. And I used to do a lot of my uni work like really late too. So I think I prefer to do that. I think a lot of that is to do with things are quiet around you, not much is going on, everyone else is kind of settled. It kind of gives you the opportunity to go, right, okay, I'm going to go and do my own thing. And I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I used to like going to the uni building when barely anyone else was in there, just work in there. It was the same when I lived in student accommodation and my old flats at my parents' house, and now here. I like to do stuff then. So yeah, it's more that really.
Well, I'm glad that you've got a long list of stuff that you want to do. The challenge is finding the time for it, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? And I'm glad as well that I know that as we're recording this, is it your last day of isolation due to COVID? Is that correct?
It should be, fingers crossed. Yeah. I tested positive again on bilateral flow on Tuesday morning, but then I took one yesterday and it was negative, and I took one just before this and it was negative. So I should hopefully be going home for Christmas, and so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. So this will, by the time people listen to this will be out in the new year. So hopefully, I'm tempting fate now, aren't I? This is the 23rd of December. We're recording this, and if I get COVID in the next day or so, we might be sending one of the neighbours to go and get the turkey.
We'll be doing a part 2 very soon, just basically just to curb David's not just boredom, but to just keep him sane.
I'll be honest, that was my first thought when you said you had COVID. I thought, oh my god, he's going to be getting cabin fever. So I thought, let's actually do a proper like podcast together or something like that. But no, I'm glad that you're hopefully going to be able to leave isolation after today anyway.
Yeah, no, I should do. So yeah, excited about that, and excited that I'm glad that I kept sane. Luckily, I had a lot of nice messages, including off you and off Anthony. If I was okay and stuff. So it's good that, you know, stick together through times of trouble.
That's the one. That sounds like an old TV theme tune.
It's basically Let It Be by the Beatles.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. I knew it rang. There is a Beatles box set up there somewhere. I knew it rang a bell.
Well, a lot of people have been saying that I look like Paul McCartney at the moment. So I'm just...
Yeah, so I can kind of see that. Yeah.
I feel like I can't escape Paul McCartney and the Beatles right now since they started growing the hair. So...
You carry on growing, Sam. You have a lovely Christmas when we get to it.
Yes,
and we must catch up again soon, and I look forward to reading or watching whatever you produce next. You take care.
You too. Thank you.